No mai, haere mai. Welcome to the Maxim Institute podcast. My name is Jason, and I'm the Communications Manager at Maxim Institute. This is our weekly short-form podcast. These podcasts are released in tandem with our weekly column and are a chance for you to hear in depth from the column's author about some of the thinking that went into producing their final piece. Today we talk to Communications Coordinator Josiah Brown about his recent column. Josiah, welcome back to the podcast. Good to have you with us, mate.
Thanks for having me.
We are talking about your latest column for Maxim, Crime's Jigsaw, The Missing Pieces. Now, I guess there's this perception that crime is on the rise. It was a big issue in the election, law and order. What are we going to do about it? How bad is it? There's been some stories in the news recently, some statistics released. Paint a picture for us.
Yeah, well, I think one way you could describe it is an exodus, at least from the CBD, Auckland CBD. One New Zealand announced that they're closing their store in the CBD. They're still paying rent, mind you, but they're closing it due to an increased level of violence and threats against staff. I mean, that's crazy. CBD, prime real estate location, right? Yeah. You know, the kind of place you want to be to have a store. Yeah. And I think it's...
We forget that CBD stands for Central Business District. Yeah. It's like where the businesses are supposed to be.
Yeah. More like, yeah. So they obviously think it's better for them for that store to remain closed.
And continue to pay rent. So they're making like 100% loss on that store.
Stats NZ, I mean, depending on how you describe their approach, they're going to abandon their office space in Auckland Central. They're not closing it straight away. So, you know, do they care about their stuff? I don't know. But they are letting the lease run out. So, I mean, at least they won't be paying rent on the place. But again, all that to say is that the CBD
For the same reasons,
For the same reasons,
yeah.
Yep. They've expressed safety concerns because of increasing levels of intimidating behavior. Quote, that's why they're leaving. So, I mean, on those two measures, you've got two pretty high-profile organizations, one a government agency and the other a private business, saying, look, it's actually not viable for us to stay and do business here. The crime is so bad, we need to get out. But it's not just the CBD.
Oh, I was going to say, don't we just want more police in the CBD then?
Well, and I mean, that's something that Mark Mitchell's quite proud of, a 50% increase in foot patrols over the last 6 months or something. So, I mean, and that's good. I'm not taking the mickey. That is important.
But that's not the extent of the problem is what you're saying. It's not just CBD crime.
No, so it helps, but it's not just CBD crime. Foodstuffs reported that there were 5,124 violent or aggressive offences in the North Island alone for the first quarter of this year. That's up 56% from last year.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, again, there's another measure by which we go, yep, things are bad, they're getting worse, something needs to be done.
So it's not just like, oh, things are bad, but the trend is up, the graph's trending up, right? There's more incidents happening.
Yeah. And it's, some people may think, oh, well, sort of retail crime, petty theft, who cares? These are rich businesses, they can handle it. Well, it costs the country $2.6 billion. And that does flow through from retailers to customers and to the New Zealand economy more broadly. So it's a little bit like the that piracy ad that you used to get when you go to the video shop before the movies played.
What's a video shop?
Yeah, wow.
Back in the days, there used to be a thing that played before the movies.
Cool guitar track, you would never steal a car, never a handbag, TV, DVD, no way. And so it's just like, and it ends right with, pirating films is stealing and making the point that it's not a victimless crime. And actually that's the way we need to approach retail crime as well. And sure, so what if they're big businesses, right? It's still theft. It's still wrong. They're taking the damage. And for many of these people, they are small operations and insurance won't cover them, or at least to make an insurance claim, it's going to cost you some exorbitant amount. So you might as well just absorb the loss. All that to say, on most metrics, you could say crime's getting worse and something needs to be done about it. The concern that people should have, New Zealanders should have, is a myopic view, a tunnel vision view of how we approach this problem.
Well, it seems pretty obvious to me that we should just increase locking people up, right? Like, I think if I'm dealing with kids, my kids, you want to make sure that there is a prohibitive punishment for something you don't want them to do. And you made the point that there's a big increase in crime. It seems that the last government, this was all over the election cycle, the ram raids and all that sort of stuff, the smash and grabs from the jewelry stores and all the fog cannons and everything. And it seemed that the last government wanted to release more people from, I think one of their goals was to reduce the prison population overall by 30%, which they did. I recall that there was a memo leaked to from Wellington Police to frontline staff to not arrest parole violators because they didn't have enough space in the prison or in the holding cells and stuff like that. It seems that we need to lock people up, right? Because otherwise they're just going to keep going out and doing this thing. So we just need to put them away.
Tougher sentencing is one approach, and there may be some merit to it, but it kind of presupposes that people who are offending are getting caught, which isn't actually the case for many offenders. It also supposes that they're rational actors, that they weigh up in their mind before they commit a crime. If I do this, this is the consequence I'll get. I don't want that. For many of these people who come from pretty difficult backgrounds, that thinking just isn't there. They're operating out of a realm that is all they've ever known. And so they're making some really bad decisions. There's a level of accountability there as well. Don't hear me saying, don't hold them.
Yeah, because I was going to say they're not just victims. Not at all. In many ways, they victimize people as well.
And that's the danger that you get if you're going to cartoon the so-called left's view on it, is that these people are victims of society. And actually, they just need a cuddle, some therapy, and it'll be all sweet back on the street. I mean, the other one you hear a lot is it's all about money. If you just give these people more money, the crime will stop. But think about all we spend as a country on welfare and benefits. Some call them handouts pejoratively. That's a lot. Has it improved the situation? Well, clearly not. Will more money improve the situation? Certainly not. So money really isn't the issue here. There are underlying issues. And it's pretty clear that it comes back down to broken families and lack of community.
So if we've got the right tending to say, as we've got the centre-right government in power now, and they want to, get tough on crime and harsher sentences and give the police more powers to arrest and that sort of thing, which makes sense. I mean, people want to walk around feeling safe. They want to be able to go to the mall and not worry that someone's going to, there's going to be an incident where the alarm's going to go off and the police are going to show up. But also we want to stop this, just arrest, spend your time, release, reoffend, be rearrested, because there is a high rate of recidivism as well under the current system, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, 56.5% of people released from prison are reconvicted. 35.8% of them are re-imprisoned. That's within 2 years.
Yeah.
So it does become a bit of a revolving door, right? Commit a crime, come out, do the same thing, come out. There are support groups that meet weekly where these people, this form of community, are the only tether they have to some semblance of a normal, healthy life. And without it, these people slip back into old habits because they aren't consistently shown a better way forward. And so I guess that's really where we need to be looking. And what I would boil it down to, really, it's two main approaches. We need to prevent the kind of crime that's happening right now because what we're doing is not enough. So something clearly needs to be done. But we also need to be looking more long-term, and I'm speaking generationally, about how we build community structures, and I'm talking both sort of institutionally, public institutions, churches, but also at a government level. What structures can we put in place to give people a hope for a better future for themselves and for their family, to equip them to do that and to build support around them? Because people who are coming from these situations can really only make the decisions they have before them. We need to be putting more options before them, and we need to be willing to put in the work to support them. So what does that mean in the short term? Well, I'm not saying prison is the solution, but it is a temporary measure, maybe part of a circuit breaker that's needed for us to put these strategic pieces in place for us to look at reducing our recidivism rates and try and reintegrate these people into our communities. We also need to be working on strengthening our families and our communities, because if we identify this as the root issue, which many do, we need to be working to strengthen those to prevent this offending in the first place.
So we've got lots of work to do if we want to strengthen our society and our nation. And it's not just locking people up, and it's not just letting them out, and it's not just locking them up and letting them out and locking them up and letting them out. It's finding, I guess, the third way. Lots of work to do. So Josiah, thanks for challenging us on this today.
Thanks, Jason. An exodus from Auckland CBD is underway. One NZ is closing its store due to safety concerns, while Stats NZ is relocating its office because of increasing levels of intimidating behaviour. Customers are staying away because they feel the area is dangerous. It's not just our city centres hit with crime. Foodstuffs reported 5,124 violent and aggressive offences in the North Island alone for the first quarter of 2024, up 56% from last year. The Retail Crime Report 2023 reveals a 115% increase in victimisations recorded by police at retail premises over the last 6 years. So what's the solution, and do any of the political parties have the answers? A singular focus on getting tough on crime or rehabilitation distracts from the underlying issue. Broken families and a lack of community have left our country in a dark place. The cliche is that people on the right are obsessed with punitive measures and gangs. These conglomerates of antisocials perpetuating the cycle of trauma that formed them are the root of all evil, according to this caricature, which sees prison as the only solution. Continuing with these definitionally unhelpful categories, the cartoon is that those on the left make endless excuses for gang members as victims. They forget that gangs are major victimizers themselves, and imprisonment is often the only way to protect the public. Our task is to find the middle way, and it remains unclear whether this government will. Tougher sentencing is one approach, limiting discretionary reductions and reinstituting a 3 strikes law. The problem is that 56.5% of people released from prison are reconvicted, and 35.8% re-imprisoned within 2 years. These figures are higher for young offenders who risk being sealed into the prison pipeline, barring early intervention. While tougher sentences may deter some offenders, rational actor hardly describes them. Sentencing also becomes irrelevant when low-level offenders fall under the radar because prosecution is too difficult. Releasing prisoners without proper rehabilitation and community structures is a recipe for disaster. So too is allowing menaces to offend with impunity. Hence security guards calling for increased powers to detain shoplifters and recover stolen goods. We need circuit breakers that include detention while recognising that for many offenders, prison is not the solution. However, until we repair the societal foundations needed to rehabilitate those wanting to change, it may be a necessary evil. Consider the Release to Work program, where minimum security prisoners nearing release are granted the ability to work during the day. That's the kind of pro-social initiative needed to support Kiwis out of destructive lifestyles. Please note, quote, standalone employment programs are unlikely to be effective unless they are combined with other support services, end quote, as highlighted in a 2019 MSD report. Pieces of the puzzle are still missing. The solution requires a more comprehensive approach than we currently have now. Think about those children currently in broken families and criminal environments. What about them and their children? Society is a partnership between the living, dead, and those yet born. We need a generational vision and commitment to rebuild what's broken.
Thanks for listening to the Maxim Institute podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us and keep up with the rest of our research and analysis of politics and policy in New Zealand, you can sign up on the homepage of our website to get our monthly forum email and invitations to future Maxim Institute events. You can search and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. From the team at Maxim, mā te wā, goodbye for now.